Hey there, duelists, and welcome back to the Crystal Domain. Today we're going to talk about a new archetype. This archetype was teased today and will be coming out in the Alliance Insight set that's upcoming for us later this year in the TCG. And this archetype is kind of based around the pun of the 25-year anniversary, so 2500 attack stat lines. So this is like a 25th anniversary archetype, basically. And they are comprised of a varying number of monsters, and it is called the Regenesis archetype. We're going to look over these cards and kind of like get an idea of like kind of what interesting stuff maybe we could see from these cards. Because I saw that they got debuted today while I was at work, and I didn't get a chance to read them other than that they relate to this specific 2500 attack and defense stat line, and we're gonna kind of get an idea of what these cards do. I'm going in blind. So the first one is Regenesis Warrior Bereshit, a level 7 fire warrior monster with 2500 attack and defense. You can only special summon with the first effect of this card's name once per turn. You can only use the second and third effect of this card's name each once per turn. If a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Effect number 2 is Quick Effect. You contribute this card, then target one monster your opponent controls and bounce it to the hand. And then effect number 3, during your opponent's end phase, if this card is in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add it to your hand. So it's recurable, it's summonable, and you can bounce, you contribute it, which then means for the other effect to bring it back, to mess with an opponent's card. Usually you'd probably want to target like extra deck monsters to make them lose value from the materials needed to play that card, but this seems neat so far. All oriented around this stat line. So if we looked at it just off of this card's domain specifically would be the Regenesis archetype. Any monster with 2500 attack or defense, and fire and warrior, which is a pretty interesting kit by itself. So then next, we have Regenesis Sage Shamat. This is a level 7 water spellcaster monster with the same mentioned stat line. If a monster with 2500 original attack or defense is on the field, you can special summon it from the hand. Also, its second and third effects can each be used once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can send one other Regenesis card from your hand or face up field to the graveyard, negate that activation, and destroy the card. During your opponent's end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add it to your hand. So these all are recurring each other, and they have different means of interaction so far. So the fire one will bounce an opponent's monster or card in general. And in this specific case, you could use a different card to negate a card or effect, and then negate the mentioned card and destroy it, which is a pretty nice means of interaction. In this case, your domain would be water and spellcaster instead of fire and warrior with Regenesis and all the 2500 stat monsters. Next, we've got Regenesis Dragon Vayikra, whatever that is. This is a level 8 wind dragon monster. As of course with the other ones, if you have a monster with a 2500 attack or defense, you can summon this card from your hand. Then quick effect, you contribute this card, then target one spell or trap your opponent controls and banish it. And then of course during the end phase, if it was sent to the graveyard this turn and it's in the graveyard, you can return it to your hand. Both of these are of course once per turn effects. So with this one, you can target an annoying back row card and banish it by tributing this card. I like that these are all kind of like doing something with the means of affecting the bottom ability. So they all have some form of interactive piece to deal with an opponent's board in some meaningful way, either back row, negating, or bouncing so far with the first 3 monsters. And then they all recur each other, and as long as you're following the ability to just drop these from the hand, as long as you have a monster with 2500 original attack or defense, then you're able to recur these cards and sort of loop them once per turn to generate value against your opponent. And I feel like these cards are going to go a longer way in a format like Domain, where there's more turns happening, there's more things to target. And so there's more chances for cards like these to shine. We're going to talk more about like the numbers of how many cards are in the domain of this like attack stat domain. But basically these decks can go pretty wide from what I've seen so far. And number 4, the last card, is of these monsters, at least from the first post, is Regenesis Archfiend Bamidbar, a level 8 Earth Fiend monster. Does this count as an Archfiend? If it's in name? Like, is this the OCG translation, roughly? And so, is this actually an Archfiend? If it is, weird. Doesn't really matter that much, but still neat. Of course, you can special summon this card from your hand. Oh, this one's different. Okay. You can special summon this card from your hand by revealing a monster in your hand with 2500 attack or defense. So this one's slightly different. To the others, they were all the same, right? You can special summon it. Special summon it. Okay, all the others are the same. This one specifically, you reveal a monster with this stat line in order to special summon it from hand. If this card is normal or special, you can add a Regenesis card from deck or banishment to your hand except itself. So we have a starter. Okay, interesting. During your opponent's end phase, if this card is in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add it to your hand. So this one doesn't require any kind of like other, like it's just, if it's in the grave, you're adding it. Same thing like with the others. It also has a starter-esque ability for effect number 2. So we might have the Deckmaster of like a more generalized sense, right? So normally you want your Deckmaster to either be like a really strong boss monster or some kind of meaningful effect that you want to repeat. And in this case, Archfiend here does have a meaningful second ability to continue to grab these cards, either from Banish, which are, it's good that it can pull them from the hardest spot to get cards from, or the deck, that way you're thinning and you're getting your pieces out that you want to be looping to do stuff, right? So if this was your deck master, you get Earth and Fiend as the general attributes, and then of course the 2500 attack and defense with the Regenesis archetype tacked on. So if this was your deck master, it would be interesting to see what people come up with like Fiend and Earth together, while also trying to maintain the stat line gimmick of this deck. So that covers our first 4 monsters of the deck, but then there was 4 more cards shown. There was like a big guy and 2 spells and a trap card. So let's go over these. This next one is Regenesis God Deuteronium. I don't know how to say that. We're Regenesis God. Level 10 Light Illusion Monster. Okay. Cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand by banishing one face-up monster you control with an original attack or defense of 2500. And you can only special summon this card once per turn this way. Alright, so this one's got one of those nice boss monster-esque summoning restrictions. If this card is special summoned, you can set one Regenesis spell or trap directly from the deck. So that's pretty neat. It gains 2500 attack during the battle phase only. That does include the opponents, which is nice. So if they go into combat and this card's still in play, 5000 attack is pretty neat. And then the last ability is if this card attacks a defense position monster, it will inflict piercing battle damage. So, neat. It's a boss monster. It doesn't necessarily protect itself unless the spell and traps do it for it. But basically, this is interesting. This one in this case is an illusion monster. So this package could see play in an illusion deck, just potentially. That's like, I'm noticing a comment here about Nimleria, which I was going to get to in the other bit about here, about like the number of cards that are in that stat line. Nimleria definitely seems like a potential for this deck because there is a number of matching cards that fit that 2500 category, but also pendulums in general seem to be the idea that people had. We'll get into that in a minute. So the next card is Regenesis, just named directly. This is a normal spell. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. The first ability is you can take one Regenesis monster from your deck and either add it to hand or send it to the graveyard. Or if you control a Regenesis monster, you can add one monster with 2500 attack and defense from your deck to your hand instead. So this could, if you already control a Regenesis monster, this can tutor any monster with those stat lines, which is pretty cool. Tutor being like search any monster. It's a term from Magic that I realize I use, and I don't think I had explained, so there we go. Ability, or effect number 2, if this card is in your graveyard except the turn it was sent there, you can banish it, target a Regenesis monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. Now we got a little bit of a recur ability, so if you have this engrave, you can banish it and then target a Regenesis monster that was put there, namely, I believe Regenesis God can be resummoned this way if you had already summoned it correctly. I think that's how that works. I'm probably wrong, but it could target a Regenesis monster and bring it back, which is pretty neat. Then we've got Tora Regenesis. That's an interesting name. Quick play spell. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. So the first ability is you cannot special summon from the extra deck until the end of the next turn after this card resolves. Also special summon one Regenesis monster from your deck, but send it to the graveyard during your opponent's end phase. So this locks you out of the extra deck until the end of the next turn, which is pretty brutal. But it does just grab a Regenesis monster from the deck, and then you send it to the graveyard during the opponent's end phase. So at least it gets it into play, which is interesting. During your main phase's ability number 2, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished Regenesis monsters and special summon it. So again, some recursion, use this in the graveyard to get a guy back from the banishment. Seems pretty good. That extra deck limitation is a bit rough. The only thing I could think of is if like we were in a deck that didn't care about the extra deck that much, which again, I think Pendulum, but they need to summon from the like, yeah, you can set your scale and then just like flood the board, but for the most part, you're doing that from them being destroyed and put into the extra deck. So yeah, I don't know. This one's kind of iffy for me if we were going in the direction of like a Pendulum pile for this deck. And lastly, we've got Regenesis Birth. This is a continuous trap card. You can only use one of the first and second effect of this card's name per turn, and only once that turn. So you can only pick one of these per turn to use. So first ability is you could send one Regenesis monster from your deck to the graveyard, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and change it to face-down defense position. So we've already got, you can send a monster from deck to grave. So it's a Foolish Burial into a Book of Moon off of the first ability. Then during the opponent's turn, for ability number 2, you can send this face-up card from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, and special summon as many Regenesis monsters with different names as possible from your hand, graveyard, and or banishment, but then send them to the graveyard during the end phase. So it's also a soul charge. This card's kind of nuts, right? I mean, those are some powerful effects. Like Book of Moon, Foolish Burial, and Soul Charge all in one ability. This card's insane. This is pretty sick. Yeah, this card's really strong. Hard to see if, like, these will be broken, right? I don't know if they're going to make an impact in, like, a competitive play. But one bit I wanted to talk about is the domain in terms of the stat line, right? So I used a card database to search up exactly, like, the stat lines for these cards to see how many monsters had both 2500 attack and defense, or 2500 attack exactly, and 2500 defense exactly. So the results are, there are 40 monsters with both 2500 attack and 2500 defense. There are 389 monsters with exactly 2500 attack, and 280 monsters with 2500 defense exactly. So this domain is very wide, right? There's a lot of monsters that this applies to, other than the fact that if we look at like our starter here, we get access to Earth and Fiend, if that was the deck master. Or in the case of the boss monster, then the domain is Light and Illusion, as well as Regenesis and the 2500 stat line. So, the thing about like this stat line is there's a couple things that could be said. One, there was a video that went around on Twitter about like a combo line with these new cards and a pendulum deck, and it was like 2-card full pendulum board, which is pretty good, let's be honest. That's solid. But that's more in a constructed sense. So I don't know if that's applicable to like a domain restriction. But the other thing that can be pointed out is this does have access to search like Kashtira Unicorn. It can search out like a bunch of the boomer monsters like Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, like stuff like that. So this could be used as like a really fun just like boomer pile with just a neat boss monster in the Deckmaster zone. But also the illusion thing and like Nemleria caught my attention. So I feel like, you know, Pendulum with like Nemleria seems fun, but also this boss monster with like an illusion pile seems pretty neat. Like illusion into like just good light stuff maybe. So like I'm pretty sure Kashtira, no, Kashtira's not light. That's right. I need to like, I just saw Rat's comment about that and I'm just fully ignoring it. We're ignoring it. Yeah, no, they're everything but, yeah, come on. Learn what you've been told. That's the lesson for today. But that's gonna be it for today. Just a little bit of a shorter video, just kind of talking about these new cards. And it'll be interesting to see if anybody does stuff with this. If they do, I'd love to see some neat jank with these cards and see if they do anything in Domain. So, hope you guys have a good day. It's cold where I am, so stay warm if you're dealing with that right now. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you would like to subscribe, that'd be deeply appreciated. We are nearing 500 subs. That'd be crazy to hit that this year. Like and leave your comments and thoughts down below about like what these cards would be good with, or to answer my question about if that one guy is actually an Archfiend. Whatever else you would like to leave your thoughts on down below, I would love to interact with that. And of course, most importantly, your time for watching the video is the most important thing, and I thank you for your time and for listening to what I had to say. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!